Victor had just met with his new accountant, who will be looking after the finances of his business. They sat down in a coffee shop to review business reports and how they'll be working together. But after just a few minutes, the accountant looked at Victor and said, "Victor, we have a serious problem." It was 6 months ago when Victor started his business. He was excited to have finally put up the business that he dreamed of, a co-working space for startups and freelancers. Victor loved the creative side of running his business, and he was really good at it too. He would constantly meet people who traveled all over the world while working from co-working spaces. He would often receive compliments from clients about how productive they were every time they worked from Victor's co-working space. What he didn't like, however, was having to do the tasks that were related to the financial side of the business. He hated digging into the numbers. He would therefore procrastinate every time he had to do the accounting by keeping himself busy with other tasks. Or he would distract himself by speaking with clients and justifying to himself that he was gathering feedback. This, of course, led to all sorts of challenges, and he constantly had to dip into the overdraft to cover his expenses. One time, Victor really got in trouble when he exceeded his overdraft limit. The bank declined the payment and the invoice stayed unpaid, but Victor didn't even notice it as it was set as a direct debit payment. About a week later, Victor was in his co-working space. It seemed like a normal day until the internet connection was lost. He picked up the phone and called his internet provider to find out if they had any technical issues. This is when he found out that the invoice was not paid. He asked if they could switch back on the internet as he would sort out the payment immediately. But the internet provider representative explained that they have to follow the process. Once the invoice was paid, the internet connection would be provided. Victor grabbed his credit card and tried to sort out the payment. Unfortunately, the money was not transferred immediately, and he had to wait for hours. People left his office spaces as they couldn't work without the internet connection. He upset many people and damaged his reputation. At that moment, he knew that something needed to change in the way he was handling his finances. On the way home, Victor was planning to hit the gym, but he decided to skip it and get home early instead. Not that he had anything in particular to do, but he just didn't enjoy exercising. Victor knew that there were plenty of benefits that come with exercise, but despite that, he would most often avoid it. At the beginning, he tried running, but no matter what he did, he couldn't seem to be able to stick with it. He tried running after work as well as first thing in the morning without any success. After running failed, he came to the conclusion that maybe running was not for him and he needed to do a different type of exercise. And the next option, of course, was to get a gym membership. He planned in the workouts every other day of the week to stay consistent. But despite having a clear plan and available time, he soon started to skip the sessions. And today was one of those days when he decided to skip the gym. Victor was sad and he was thinking about his business and why it was so hard for him to look after finances. He then remembered his friend Lucas, who was extremely detail-oriented and loved diving deep into numbers. He remembered their conversation about a year ago when they were both planning to start a business. At one point, they considered joining forces together to form a joint venture. It would have been a perfect match of skills as Lucas was good on the financial and analytical side, while Victor had a great creative spirit. Unfortunately, they couldn't agree on a business idea. Lucas wanted to start a coffee shop, while Victor knew that he wanted to open a co-working space. In the end, they went separate ways, but still remained good friends. While cooking dinner that evening, Victor had an idea. Without finishing cooking his meal, he went to his workroom and started to browse the internet. His idea was delegation. He wanted to find an accountant who would take over the responsibility of looking after the business finances. In the coming days, he interviewed a couple of candidates and eventually hired one. He made an agreement that his accountant would take full responsibility for finances so that Victor didn't have to do it anymore. He was really happy that he figured out a way to deal with his weakness. For about 2 months, everything seemed to be going fine. He only had to check in with the accountant a few times and he said that everything was perfect. That was exactly what Victor wanted to hear. But 2 months later, Victor got an email that said that he hadn't submitted some tax documents. He called his accountant to ask about it, but he wouldn't answer the phone. So he called later, but no answer again. It was only a couple of days later when he emailed back, and it said that he couldn't work with Victor anymore without giving a clear reason. This was strange, but Victor didn't want to waste too much time on it, so he decided to hire a new person. This time, Victor decided to hire someone from his city so that they could actually meet up. They sat down in the coffee shop to review business reports and how they'll be working together. But after just a few minutes, the accountant looked at Victor and said, "Victor, we have a serious problem." It turned out that the previous accountant had been stealing money from Victor. They discussed the options to fix the situation, but Victor would have to take a short-term loan from the bank to cover his expenses. After the meeting, Victor was driving home and he decided to stop in the park. He needed some fresh air as he couldn't believe what had happened. As he was walking, there was a newspaper on the ground. He picked it up and the title grabbed his attention. Victor sat down on the bench and started reading the article. It was describing the concept of temptation bundling. Temptation bundling is the process of combining two activities together, one that you really enjoy and one that you really don't want to do. Victor instantly thought about how he didn't like to deal with spreadsheets and analyze reports, and also how he was struggling with consistent exercise. The article went on to give an example of how the concept can be applied. If you have to prepare a presentation that you're not looking forward to, then you can break it down into sections and reward yourself every time you complete the milestone. This could be watching your favorite TV show or treating yourself with your favorite food. This method works because our body releases dopamine when achieving something like completing a task, and it is also triggered when we anticipate an expected reward. This spikes our motivation and energy levels to complete a task that needs to be done, then be able to enjoy the reward. This concept sounded really interesting, and Victor knew that he would not be able to forever avoid dealing with the financial side of his business. He just had a good lesson of what happens when he simply wants to delegate and forget about it. So he went ahead and decided to integrate the temptation bundling concept to help him with his weaknesses. His first goal was to tackle his business finances. He set up a plan where he would analyze the reports weekly, and he would do it at the same coffee shop where he met with his new accountant. He loved coffee and cake, so every time he would finish the reports, he would order a cup of coffee and a piece of carrot cake. Weeks went by, and he was consistent with his plans. He even started to look forward to his coffee shop visits. He also started to realize how important it was to be on top of the data, as that really helped him to make better decisions. The next thing that he did was applying temptation bundling to improve his exercise consistency. Victor enjoyed learning, so he decided to educate himself during the exercises. Whether he went to the gym or decided to go for a run, he could listen to audiobooks and learn new things. Suddenly, workouts became more interesting as he was able to combine something that he knew was good for him with something that he really enjoyed. Thanks to the concept of temptation bundling, he was able to overcome his weaknesses and work around them. He can still remember the day he picked up the newspaper in the park. It wasn't something that he planned for, but it certainly improved his life for the better. Because if he would have left the newspaper on the ground, he would have never found out about the concept of temptation bundling.